Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fruitful Trees. I'm so excited to be bringing to you the information that I bring. We're all learning, and I just want to learn as much as possible. As you see behind me, I have a whole bunch of trees, and it just didn't happen overnight. I learned, I took trees out, I moved trees, and then a whole bunch of things like that. So one of the things that I do here is try to provide as much information as possible for you to plant the best things for where you're at and to do them correctly to save you a tremendous amount of time. Well, you know, there's thousands of different types of mangoes out there and different varieties of mangoes. I have many different varieties of mangoes. And what are the best varieties of mangoes to plant? And there's many things to take into consideration. There's taste, there's location, there's disease resistance, and so many other more variables that will determine what's the best tree for us to plant. Well, when I was planting my trees, and as I still plant my trees, I always try to consider what is the best situation and the best way to plant a mango. You know, the average person doesn't know certain things, and hopefully these videos will provide people with some answers on how to do so. One example is a mango seed. Some people think you plant a mango seed, you get a mango, but they don't have any idea about grafting and the mango seed. The probability of it coming out to a true mango is not real, and things like that. So if you're experience with this, wonderful, but if you're not and you're new to this channel, there's a lot of videos on these different topics. Well, today is about a mango variety. When I was looking at all the best mango varieties, I did what made most sense. I contacted some of the people who had the most experience. That's the best people to learn from. And of all the people I know that have the most experience, one of them with mangoes, one of them is Alex from Tropical Acres. He has over 300 varieties of different types of mangoes. He's grown many over the past. He's top worked many. He's done a whole bunch of different things. Well, I asked him, what is the best disease resistance, tasting, reliable mango that you have or that you know of? And when I was planting, I wanted to make sure I had that one. So he told me it is this one, Duncan. Duncan, yes. Growing up, I heard of Dunkin' Donuts, but I never heard of a Dunkin' Mango. Well, as you can see, I got it in my yard here. It's growing, and it's a good mango. I wouldn't rate it the best tasting mango I've ever had, but I would definitely rate it a good, reliable mango. And according to him, it is one of his top mangoes for many, many different reasons, which we're going to see today on the show, because I went to Tropical Acres and I interviewed Alex, and I wanted him to do a profile on Duncan, and here it goes right now. Okay, everybody, here we are at Tropical Acres, and we're going to be seeing Alex today, and he's going to be talking about this amazing thriving mango here. Look at it, it's crazy. It's Duncan Mango, and hey, Alex, how you doing?
Hey.
Good.
Okay.
So tell us about this mango here, which you've told me about over the years so much about it being one of the most productive disease-resistant mangoes.
So this is the original Duncan mango tree. This was bred by David Sturrock on this property back in the 1950s. David Sturrock was a really well-known horticulturalist at that time in South Florida. He was very involved in the mango culture down here. He was a member of the Florida Mango Forum and a published author as well, and published a number of journal studies in addition to that, the books that he wrote. So David Sturrock had always wanted to improve mangoes down here in South Florida. He wanted to hybridize them and make them more productive and disease resistant, make improvements on things that had been introduced to here long before. And so in the 1950s, he decided that he wanted to start breeding them on this farm. And he decided that he wanted to use the Edward mango as his primary parent, because the Edward was one of the best tasting mangoes in Florida. It still is, but you know, at the time, Edward, being such a good tasting fruit, had issues with productivity down here, and he wanted to get something that tasted excellent but was also a very productive and disease-resistant tree. And so David Sturrock hybridized the Edward with a number of other mangoes, including the Philippine mango. He had some big Philippine trees on this property, which are still here, by the way. And so he made several Edward Philippine crosses. Now, when you plant mango seeds, okay, they go through a period of juvenility in South Florida that can run anywhere from 5 to 8 years. David Sturrock, by the 1950s, was already advancing in age and didn't feel like waiting 5 to 8 years to find out how these hybrid seeds had turned out. So he had a theory in mind. He thought that if he took the seedlings that he had planted and grafted them to mature trees, that he could get them the fruit sooner than they otherwise would if they were planted as seedlings in the ground, because that mature tree would impart hormones to that seedling that was grafted to it that might make it flower faster than it otherwise would. So he took these seedlings he had, I think he had maybe 4 dozen of them or something like that, and he approach grafted them to these mature trees that they had planted on this property that were already bearing size mango trees. So he literally took these potted seedlings and he grafted them to the branches of these mature trees, and he wired them onto the trees so they wouldn't fall off, and tried this experiment. And sure enough, within a couple of years, some of these seedlings that he had planted in 1956 or 7 started to flower. And one of them was the one that's behind me here. He later recognized that this was a superior seedling and a very productive, disease-resistant tree, mango. And so he decided to give it a name. He named it Duncan after a man named Ralph Duncan, who had provided him with some map material for one of his books. And so that's where the Duncan name came from. He was so impressed with the production and the qualities that this fruit had that he decided to patent this mango. So Duncan became one of the few patented mangoes in U.S. history. There's not too many of them. Probably less than 2 dozen mangoes have been patented in the United States.
What does that mean?
That means that he literally registered this variety as a patent under his name with the U.S. Patent Office. And he did that actually with another mango too, the young, which we'll talk about maybe some other time. But so this is a mango that got patented in the 1960s. I think it was 1968. The patent is now expired, so it can be propagated freely. But we have quite a few Duncan trees on this property because the Sturrocks decided to convert other trees through top working into Duncan, and it's an extremely productive tree. So you can see the clusters of fruit that it produces. Now, it got that trait from the Philippine mango. The Philippine mango bears in clusters. But unlike the Philippine, this makes full-size mangoes, and its flavor is of the Philippine sort. It is similar to Philippine, probably a sweeter mango when it gets into the later part of its ripening period. The later Duncans tend to be very sweet compared to the earlier ones, but the full-size fruit factor is a big deal because for something that makes such huge clusters of fruit, to make fruit that can get over a pound oftentimes in size is really remarkable. And so these Duncan trees year after year produce enormous quantities of fruit. It's a fiberless fruit, very clean, well appreciated, and so we have no trouble selling them. And they're like machines. They're amazing trees. They can fruit in very humid climates. I had Duncan trees in Loxahatchee at my old farm there, and I didn't need to spray them. They would fruit no matter what. And so that's a great trait to have. If you're in like a humid area that's got a lot of disease pressure, this mango doesn't get much anthracnose. It doesn't get much powdery mildew. It does not get bacterial spot much either. It's pretty resistant to everything, and that's really awesome. So, but this old tree, it's actually, as I said, a approach grafted seedling, if you will. So the graft scar is still visible. He grafted this kind of low on whatever mature stump he used, and so it's not too far, only a few feet off of the ground. In fact, I can show the graft union on this. You can see the callus tissue here. So this is where the graft was done.
Wow.
So he took a low branch and he grafted to a low branch on this with his seedling. But this is it. This is the original.
How old
tree.
is this tree?
Would have been planted from seed in 56 or 57 or something like that, I think. Mid to late 1950s. So this tree's over 60 years old now. It's gotten pretty tall. It would be taller, but it did suffer quite a bit of storm damage over the years, and it got cut back to cut away that dead tissue. So now it's actually not too bad in terms of height, and it's not that difficult for me to harvest this tree.
If somebody was going to be planting this new, what size would they keep?
You can keep a Duncan probably at 10 feet or less. I mean, it's not too aggressive. It's like a low to medium vigor tree. So I like that about them too. You know, they're really manageable. They're not super aggressive. They're precocious. They start bearing as small trees. I mean, I've seen a lot of grafted Duncan trees, little ones in pots that flower and make mangoes.
Wow.
So, but the cool thing about this is that it's resilient to having big crops. A lot of mangoes, if they have large crops, it takes a lot of energy out of them and they have difficulty fruiting well the next year. Duncans can make enormous crops and then the very next year have a great crop as well. That's pretty remarkable. So
I think you told me this previously, and I don't know if it's still true today. Productivity-wise and disease-resistant-wise, this would be one of your top mangoes to suggest for people.
In terms of like the overall disease resistance, the production, and just being a good quality mango in general, it's a great choice for people who want something really carefree and doesn't require a lot of upkeep.
And taste-wise, from a 1 to a 10, what would you give it? I know everyone has different taste buds, but what would you give it, with 10 being the best?
So I did mention how it improves in its flavor as the season goes on. So the later season Duncans are what I use as my metric, and so it's probably like I don't know, maybe like a 7 or 8 or something like that, a really good one. So it's not in the same category as like, I don't know, a sweet tart or an orange sherbet or something like that, perhaps, but it's still a good mango, and so that's you know, that counts for a lot. So
sure.
And lots of people really like it. So it's not going to appeal to everybody. Obviously, there's going to be people for whom they might find it you know, too mild or whatever. But there's lots of fans of Duncan too. So like I said, we don't have any trouble selling the fruit, and you know, we're happy to have the Duncan trees that we have. So David Sturrock's you know, his breeding program really was a huge contribution to mango culture in South Florida, and the Duncan mango was a great accomplishment of his, and something that the Sturrock family is certainly still very proud of, and rightfully so.
Sure. And when did he pick these? When they're green or when they're yellow?
So Duncans can be picked when they're green, and they'll ripen actually really well. But if you're just trying to figure them out, they'll get a little bit of yellow on their nose, like an Edward mango will. And as soon as there's a tiny bit of yellow, you pick them, because if they turn completely yellow, they're going to drop within a day. So we try to get them before that point, but they're pretty forgiving about being picked a little green. So that's another great trait about this fruit. It's flexible. If a tree ripens, it's fine. It does not get off flavors too easily. It has a long shelf life. So yeah, that's
very good. There's the Duncan mango. Alrighty, thank you, Alex. Put everybody, his contact information is below the video, so check it out and put your comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, there it was. That was another variety we're doing. We're trying to cover, I'd like to cover all the varieties that Alex has in his farms, all 300, so you can make that decision. But if you go to Alex's website, Tropical Acres, and actually, I'll put the link below the video, but if you click on We Sell Mangoes, as it says in his bed, there's an amazing list of all the different mangoes varieties and all their traits, the ones that do good, the ones that don't, and so on. And so definitely check that list out. I use it as a resource all the time. But this was the Duncan mango, and it's a good one to have if you have the space. All right, everybody. So thank you for checking this out. Thank you, Alex, for your expertise on this topic. And until then, everybody, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and click that bell so you know when I'm notified when I'm doing a video. Until then, everybody, have a great day and keep growing.